蒙古语教学事件中23人遭通缉。开学报到日，南蒙古学校教室空无一人，家长们拒绝送孩子去学校，以此表达抗议。兴安门乌兰浩特市，警察四处追捕蒙古族学生，抓他们回去上课。
5월中的学生提前都学生都들어가라 됐지？ 가라 됐지？ 都大家拿着。왔다。 大家，5월中的学生都들어가라 됐지？ काही जुंगने सुरक्षित तामना बालक तारात करा देचे
हैदरे निकटोर तुम सुरक्षित मंगल सुरक्षित
자, 너들어라 다이르 망보고 테라안에 이순살이 내군데 은월라 버거틴나 양한 자민 운드스네 버스키틴 박사로 걸었나 너들어 수락지월 약 저것성아 약 일승 거야 약 그렇소
Saya macam rumah baru anak iseng sari ini, baru jumlah masyarakat Mongol tamu tak terus. бүх ангийн дэх бүр иймэрхүү.
Силиотын 1-р Монголдон бага сургууль сурагч байхгүй юу ч гоо. Өнөөдөр вакцинаны дөрвөлс байхгүй хаашаа цаадаггүй. Өчигдөр вакцинаны дөрвөлс рүү харин байсан.
Баярны бага сургууль. Нэг сурагч вэ гэж байна. Сургуулийн орны 2 баг байна. За 2009 оны 9 сарын 1-ны баяр бага сургууль. Окей. Нэг сурагч зүгээр багцнаад одоо гомдлоод үүн дээр байна. Нэг сурагч үгүй нэг сурагч.
Одоо бидний зөвхөн шаардлага үүсэж чиглэлээр авч. Талагийн зэрэгчтэй дишаа юуж.
Сарын 2-ны өдөр Өвөр Монголын радио телевиз хорооны Монгол радио телевизийн 300 гаруй ажилтнаас хос хэлний сургаан хүмүүстийн 2 дугаар жагуурыг хүлээн авч чадахгүй гэдэг өргөдлийн бичгээр тушаалаа.
간지는 유화, 우리는 완전아, 우리 별잖아, 떴잖아, 작잖아, 우리 떴잖아. 어.
蒙古政府红头文件，党员或公职人员的子女罢课就惩治家长，这是中共以黑治国的铁证。9月2号下午4点左右，发生在长春的一幕。共产党的城管光天化日之下，连打带骂抢东西。9月2日，五台山山顶积雪。
去哪儿登记去？
到外边。
哦，行。登记啥呢？登记？
你身份证刷出来，你是因为黑名单，我们出去。
黑名单是说啥？
啊？
黑名单说啥？
调查一下，我们核实。
调查啥？
啊？
调查啥？黑名单人是
上了黑名单了。
哦，因为啥上了黑名单了？
干过罪还是有什么有没有什么犯罪记录？
那为啥就给我弄了黑名单了？黑名单咋说的？
这是你上的，你得去你当地。
我看看行不行？我那上头写的啥？
公安东西你不能看。
我咋就不能看？那我有知情权呀！你把我身份证都扣了，我还不能知道我干啥呢？
到大厅。
来，你先跟我出来。
我跟出去干啥？我买了票了，我正常的买票你不让我走。今天是2020年8月30日，我坐火车上北京啊，把我身份证扣了不让走，让配合调查。哎呀，维权成了犯罪分子了，犯罪分子逍遥法外。
9月1日，北京大风、冰雹、暴雨。
왔어요.
多地一直的分析，9月1日17时左右，内蒙古高处是再降大冰雹，冰雹平均几10毫米，最大10毫米，地上铺满了白白的冰雹。
哎呀，这天气，这啥天气？第2场大冰雹，这场冰雹可大了，看看。
美国国务院副国务卿 Keith Clark 年底前可能出访台湾。最大央企国铁集团半年亏损近1000亿，称为了人民而不盈利。华为称如需要芯片，国产汽车比亚迪随时可造。9月1日，宁波一小学开学典礼出现步兵战车。
以后不要再浪费粮食了。
台美日欧9月4日将在台湾讨论供应链重组。
India and China have once again fallen out over a disputed border in the Himalayas on Tuesday. India accused Chinese troops of taking provocative actions in the mountain area. It said this happened while commanders from both sides held talks on Monday to reduce tensions. An Indian official said their country's troops had deployed on 4 strategic hilltops after what New Delhi called an attempted Chinese incursion along a border in Ladakh over the weekend. The Asian giants have been locked in a border confrontation for months in the high-altitude Ladakh area. The two countries have disputed the course of the frontier for more than half a century. An Indian official, briefed on the latest incident, said soldiers responded to an attempt by a large number of Chinese infantry to push through a key mountain pass late on Saturday.
According to the U.S. Air Force, an unarmed Minuteman III ICBM equipped with a test re-entry vehicle was launched early on Wednesday from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. It traveled over 6,700 kilometers to the Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands. This comes a month after the last U.S. test launch. The Air Force said its tests are to verify the accuracy and reliability of its ICBM system.
Today, I'm announcing the State Department has established a mechanism requiring approval for senior Chinese diplomats in the United States to visit university campuses and to meet with local government officials. Cultural events with groups larger than 50 people hosted by the Chinese embassy and consular posts outside our mission properties will also require our approval. Additionally, we're taking further steps to ensure that all official PRC, embassy, and consular social media accounts are properly identified as government accounts, Chinese government accounts. We're simply demanding reciprocity. Access for our diplomats in China should be reflective of the access that Chinese diplomats in the United States have, and today's steps will move us substantially in that direction. Further on China, Undersecretary Kroc sent a letter recently to the governing boards of American universities, alerting them to the threats the Chinese Communist Party poses to academic freedom, to human rights, and to university endowments. These threats can come in the form of illicit funding for research, intellectual property theft, intimidation of foreign students, and opaque talent recruitment efforts. University governing boards can help ensure their institutions have clean investments and clean endowment funds by taking a few key steps. Disclose all PRC companies' invested in endowment funds, especially those in emerging market index funds. Divest from Chinese companies on a Commerce Department entity list that are contributing to human rights violations, military coercion, and other abuses. And simply understand the recommendations issued by the President's Working Group on Financial Markets, which examine the risk to investors of Chinese companies that are listed on U.S. stock exchanges.
The Pentagon says that China's well on its way to its goal of becoming a, quote, world-class military that can match or even exceed the power of the United States Armed Forces. China now controls the largest navy in the world, with roughly 350 ships and submarines compared to 293 for the United States, although we have more aircraft carriers, which is an important detail there. So it's also attempting to double the size of its nuclear warhead stockpile, according to this report, over the next 10 years. What do you make of this report?
Well, I think it's largely accurate. If anything, it may be a little bit understated. China clearly is the most rapid growing military in the world today. They exceed U.S. capability, as you mentioned, in Navy ships, but also offensive long and medium range missiles and also air defense systems. And where they're heading strategically on the long range military path is by 2035 or 40 to be the super dominating military power in the world, something the United States has held ever since the collapse of the Soviet Union. That's the path that they're on, and they're not there yet.
So one of the things that came up in the interview that Attorney General Bill Barr did today with Wolf Blitzer at CNN was he was asked, who presents the bigger election threat? Because we know that the military aspect of this is just one aspect. They try to infiltrate our elections. They try to expand their influence all through Africa and other places around the world. But this is what the Attorney General said. Watch this.
Russia, China, and Iran. Which is the most assertive, the most aggressive in this area?
I believe it's China.
Which one?
China.
China more than Russia right now?
Yes.
Why do you say that?
Because I've seen the intelligence. That's what I've concluded.
What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, he's absolutely right. It used to be Russia, but China, their cyber and espionage program is hard to get your head around, the scale of it. There's not tens of thousands involved in it. There's hundreds of thousands involved in this.
In relation to the numbers of consular staff that we have around Australia representing the Chinese. So we've got 148 consular staff right around the country, 11 in Adelaide, 10 in Adelaide, when other countries have far fewer nationally. And in Adelaide, the nearest country is Italy with 2. And we perhaps need to be winding that sort of stuff back.
You're saying limit how many, have repercussions for China, limit how many consular staff they're allowed in Australia, literally start sending some back?
Well, it's excessive at the moment, and we know that China is engaging in political interference. We know that they're trying to influence our politics. We know that they're trying to get access to industrial and university secrets. And we permit that to occur by having large number of consulate officials here in Australia. There's no question that some of this interference, some of this espionage is being run for some of these consulates.
On China. Undersecretary Kroc sent a letter recently to the governing boards of American universities, alerting them to the threats the Chinese Communist Party poses to academic freedom, human rights, and to university endowments. These threats can come in the form of illicit funding for research, intellectual property theft, intimidation of foreign students, and opaque talent recruitment efforts. University governing boards can help ensure their institutions have clean investments and clean endowment funds by taking a few key steps. Disclose all PRC companies' invested in endowment funds, especially those in emerging market index funds. Divest from Chinese companies on a Commerce Department entity list that are contributing to human rights violations, military coercion, and other abuses. And simply understand the recommendations issued by the President's Working Group on Financial Markets, which examine the risk to investors of Chinese companies that are listed on U.S. stock exchange. Further on China, Undersecretary
Pompeo wants to fight his way back in. I got the mic now, Mike, so you can't. No, the hammer drops again today, 10 o'clock at the State Department on the 75th anniversary of the formal end, the signing of the instruments of surrender of the Imperial Japanese forces 75 years ago today. Mike Pompeo, who's a student of history, steps up. First off, they leak into the South China Morning Post, the new alliance. And this alliance is, if I'm Lao Beijing, I'm feeling pretty good today. The cavalry is going to arrive, right? Understand that the way forward is to the destruction of the Chinese Communist Party and the freeing of the people of China. It's the great work of the unfinished work of the 20th century. And it will be the dominating story in the 21st. One of the reasons we focus on it so much. We're going to get to other things in a few minutes, particularly this election, which is so important to. And Raheem, I've got a question, and Jack, jump in. Where's the Biden campaign on China? How can you have one of the central issues of the day? It was in Politico yesterday. President Trump. We ought to get that article if we can get it up. The AVN guys. I think we got the Politico article showed about. Trump's doubling down on the intelligence, and people are saying, well, it's really not there, about China wants Biden. But even if that's the case or not the case, where is the Biden, foreign policy experts? He's got Jake Sullivan. He's got some pretty smart guys over there. Where are they as far as, where are they as far as any response? Is there any response in this at all?
I was just thinking that when I was watching that clip for the first time in the break, and I was thinking, gosh, can you imagine what our China policy here today from the United States would be if Hillary had won, and what it could be in just a few months' time as well if they get their way? I mean, it would be the total opposite of what Mike Pompeo is doing. And the foreign policy experts, as you say, I mean, the Ben Rhodeses of the world, these super intelligent, hyper intelligent. I mean, for the audience to understand, this is the DC set. They are the glitterati of this town. They have dinner parties at each other's houses every night. They talk to each other as if they're all geniuses. But they don't have an answer to any of this. Ben Rhodes was asked yesterday, he keeps calling Trump a dictator. He was challenged, hey, find me a dictator that's like Donald Trump and that's governed like Donald Trump. He goes, Viktor Orban, who just got re-elected in a democratic election that was...
that could have been his response.
It was his response. It's crazy.
This is about managed decline. The reason Donald Trump is president of the United States is that Hillary Clinton represented the Wall Street corporatist faction and the political class. They were comfortable with the managed decline. People in their campaign said later they didn't realize how much traction we could get on China. At that time, it was really about the manufacturing jobs leaving in the upper Midwest. They realized they didn't have a response to that. What I've heard from many people is they actually believe in the Thucydides trap. They believe that we're the declining power, that the Judeo-Christian West is on the decline, and that the Chinese authoritarian model, and you see this from, you see a number of the commentators around there, they like the model. This is what this whole thing on the pandemic, it's their model of total totalitarian rule versus ours, which is a little shaggy. It's a democracy. And they're pitching it. The West is in a decline. We're the rising power. Sign up now. And this is why they're telling, Iran and Pakistan and Turkey and the Gulf Emirates, hey, the Western model doesn't work. Our model works with total totalitarian control, particularly now with technology. And we're the rising power. That's just fundamentally wrong. The Alliance of Liberty is actually the rising power. And these virtues, and this is why we have new federal state people on all the time, the whistleblower movement. You see the best and the brightest, I think, in China right now that want to break out, that understand that it can't continue. Right? Milesguo continues to say, hey, they're a paper tiger. They may look overwhelming, right? But when you really look, they get feet of clay, and that feet of clay is that they don't believe in freedom. They don't believe in liberty. And Lao Beijing now, that's why they keep them behind a firewall, a technological firewall. They're kept behind a technological firewall because they understand if they could communicate daily, if they could listen to the War Room Pandemic without the GTV guys having to blow it through a firewall every day, hey, we'd have 2 million callers a day coming in from mainland China and saying, hey, we want some of this American technology. We want some freedom. And this whole thing is that the Chinese are not prepared to govern themselves. Look at Taiwan. Look at the great job Taiwan's done the best job of anybody in this pandemic. Look at the folks in Hong Kong before they suppressed. Look at in the United Kingdom and Europe. Look at the protest in Germany and Canada and Japan, throughout the world, where the Chinese are given freedom. And here's the interesting thing. They're fighting for freedom at the same time in the United States. We have a totalitarian cultural revolution.
Yeah, we're fighting for serfdom.
It's fighting for serfdom, fighting for economic serfdom. So this is why these are turbulent times. This is a fourth turning. It's hard to get your balance, hard to get your feet. That's what we try to do in this show every day, is reinforce what's the signal, not the noise. Don't worry about the stuff on the surface. Worry about the big powers. We for months, I think almost years now, have been talking about what has to happen to come together around the CCP.
昨天很多战友给我打电话，在蒙古那边，蒙古的战友这两天，当我们看到蒙古的孩子被给弄在学校的时候，就那种感觉兄弟姐妹们，但凡咱们有一点点良知，我们都在学校长大的，看到那些孩子竟然被关在学校里不让回家，你说这个世界有多疯狂？我今天跟很多朋友说，我说我在几年前给你们西方世界说的时候，他们共产党想控制地球，你觉得我是个疯子你看看在新疆干的事儿，西藏干的事儿，台湾干的事儿，香港干的事儿，在美国这个 DOJ 的文件干的事儿，在欧洲干的事儿，在非洲干的事儿你能看出来这个共产党想干啥？就和1932年到1946年的德国希特勒完全一样，经济疯狂的变态增长然后极端的民族主义，一帮神经病大外宣制造了人类上最魔鬼的这个哲学叫什么？把谎言说1000遍，他们就会当成真理拍电影大外宣给老百姓洗脑，把老百姓绑下了战车。英国的飞机都已经打到他柏林去了都投到希特勒老家去了结果希特勒还要去打苏联，前苏联，还要打斯大林格勒你说他疯不疯狂？
共产党，你完了！共产党，你完了！
美国表示将停止向世界卫生组织缴纳会费。印度尼西亚报告了每日感染病例的新纪录。俄罗斯登记了近5000例新感染。印度报告病例数创历史新高。CDC 要求美国各州在11月1日之前做好疫苗接种准备。俄罗斯恢复与埃及、阿联酋和马尔代夫的国际航班。据路透社报道，中国向航空业人员提供了实验性病毒疫苗接种。联合国难民署说 ，CCP 病毒威胁着对改善难民儿童教育的进展。前意大利总理西尔维奥·贝鲁斯科尼被诊断出患有冠状病毒。